I am super excited about being able to show you these two cars side by side. Do I need the Clubsport now? Hello and welcome back to the Volks Wizard channel, and welcome to a video that I'm super excited about making because today I'm going to share with you my opinions on a brand new generation of GTI, the Mark 8.5 we have right here, with a healthy 20 horsepower more than the old Mark 8 and a number of other changes that promise to make it a better overall package than the Mark 8 and even potentially a rival for the 300 horsepower Clubsport. To find out if that is actually the case, I'm going to give you some stats on the new car versus the old car. I'm going to give you a tour of both of them, which I'm really excited about because I've not actually been able to see them side by side, so hopefully you'll be excited about that as well. And to work out if I can save a few £1,000 and not have to buy a Clubsport and be happy with the new base model, we're going to go for a drive on the roads around Wolfsburg and see if it can give me the thrills that the 245 Mark 8 never did. But before we get started, let me remind you guys how you can support the channel. We're still getting loads of views from non-subscribers, so if you like what you see, then please do subscribe. I'm sure you know how to do that by now. Okay, let's start off then by seeing how these two GTIs compare on paper, starting with the price. So the Mark 8, when it was deleted, this is a very late model, was £39,850. The 8.5 today, £38,900, so just under £1,000 cheaper. Yep, the new car is cheaper than the old car. I think that's probably a first, but then we have to remember when this came out, it was about 34 grand. Clubsport was 37, R was 39. So in the great scheme of things, they're still quite expensive, but they're going in the right direction. And the actual 1,100 quid below the 40 grand does make quite a difference when it comes to luxury car tax and what you can add as an option, which we'll talk about later. Okay, now power and torque. Mark 8, 245 horsepower. Mark 8.5, 265. So that's 20 horsepower up, which is nearly 10%. But what's really important is that it closes the gap with the Clubsport GTI, which for the 8.5 generation has stayed with the 300 horsepower of the Mark 8. So that's why I'm really keen to give this car a good drive to see if it can give me the thrills that I require with that extra 20 horsepower, which the Mark 8 couldn't, and that's why I bought a Clubsport back in 2021. Torque stays the same, by the way, 370 Newton meters. How does this translate into performance? Well, it's good because the Mark 8 was 6.2 seconds 0 to 62, and the Mark 8.5 is in the 5, so 5.9. That's not massively behind the Clubsport S or even the Mark 8 Clubsport. So it's only 0.3 of a second quicker, but it all helps. They're both limited to 155 miles an hour, so no change there. The CO2 emissions have gone up a little bit for the new car, 160 to 162, and it uses a little bit more fuel, 39.8 miles per gallon on the WLTP combined cycle versus 39.6. Now, let's see how they've changed on the outside and the inside. Well, I am super excited about being able to show you these two cars side by side because it only seems like a few weeks ago when I was pasting photos into videos so we could compare them. But in the metal, I think the changes are a lot more obvious. Although they are subtle, it is just a facelift. If you think Mark 7 to 7.5, you won't be too far off the mark with 8 to 8.5. But when you kind of notice the subtle differences, you'll find it easy to tell the difference between the two cars. I think we need to start off with the headlights. I never really had a problem with them on the Mark 8, but now I see the slimmer units on the 8.5. I think the 8.5, the 8 looks a little bit clumsy. The grille looks the same, but then you kind of realize that the light bar is a white on this car, and then on the 8.5, it's sort of a tinted color, so it's darker, and also you've got the illuminated Volkswagen badge on the 8.5, like it or not. You don't have that on this, you just have the light bar. We've got LED matrix headlights, by the way, as standard for the UK market. We had them for the 8 as well. The front bumper treatment, apart from the radar, which you get on all the 8.5s, which is hidden behind the badge on the 8, and that's why you can illuminate that because the radar's down there. Profile of the front bumper is a little bit different. What's interesting is that they simplified this area down here. So instead of having this like lower section and upper section, they've made that into one, and then that's given the opportunity to bring the fog lights a little bit lower. So we've got well, 2.5 honeycombs there and just 2 there. So yeah, I think that makes it look a little bit lower at the front because you've got less black plastic, which is good. The honeycombs are probably a little bit bigger on this car. The radar's confusing things, but I'd say I get my hand in that. There we go. I can't get my hand in there as far. So yeah, they're a little bit bigger, but not much. GTI badge looks the same. Number plate holder, that is interesting. So there's no number plate plinth on this car. This one has got one, a bit like Porsche's. Onto the side, we'll come to the wheels in a sec. Okay, so because the GTE has got a charging port on the side of the wing, they've had to ditch the dagger badges. If you look at 8 GTE, it never had any dagger badges. So they wanted to standardize things. So instead of, I don't know, doing things differently for the GTE, they've given all the models the model designation on the side. That's from R line upwards. A lot of people are saying this is not a nice design touch. I've got to agree. I think the R logo looks okay. 3 layers looks a little bit weird. Other than that, there is nothing different at the side of the 8.5. Yeah, sill cover profile is the same. Let's talk about the wheels then. So both these cars are running the 19-inch options. We've got the Adelaides on the 8. We've got the Queenstown on the 8.5. They've both got the extensions to allow for the extra offset of the wheels. Sizes, tyre sizes, it's all the same. Even the tyre on these two cars, Bridgestone Potenza S005, it's the same. Brakes, it's a bit of a bone of contention with me now because these brakes are not massive. I think they're 312s, and that's like the same as a Mark IV Golf GTI 1.8T. And this car's now got 265 horsepower. And I think that should be now on a bigger brake. But yeah, anyway, you can fit that later if you want. If you don't want to buy a Clubsport, upgrade these brakes. That's it. Let's have a quick look at the back. There isn't an awful lot of difference. I would say it is identical to the Mark 8 in every way apart from the rear lights. So we've got these nice IQ lights again, but they're a bit more modern looking than the ones on the Mark 8. So they've got these individual segments and they look a bit cleaner because these are quite a fussy IQ light on the Mark 8. And that is it. Right now, let's have a look inside where it's very similar, but also very different. Okay, let's start off then with the Mark 8. Let's reacquaint ourselves with what we have got. So this is a very late car from Volkswagen's heritage fleet. They're keeping one on the fleet. It's a 23 reg, so it's got all the updates. It's got the GTI on the seat, which the early ones didn't have. It's got the pleather elbow rest. It's got the Alcantara. So on the early cars, this was just like a horrible grey fabric, and yeah. Oh, we've also got the piano black centre console, which does, you know, look a bit more expensive than the old plastic one that came on the early cars. Let's have a look in the 8.5 then. So really, it's identical. Seats are identical. It's got the piano black. The only difference is we have this trim now, which is quite nice. It's textured. And we moved on from the honeycomb pattern that's in the Mark 8. So yeah, carpet-wise, it's the same quality. It's the same floor mats with the red stitching. Okay, so let's move on to what's different. And the big deal is that we've lost the 10.2-inch, I think, screen that is, I guess you could say, integrated into the instrument cluster with this piano black panel, but it still sits proud of the actual dash moulding itself. On the 8.5, then we have a much bigger screen, and yeah, it doesn't sort of blend into the instrument cluster anymore. The piano black panel's still there, but it sits proud. A lot of you guys, I know, find this a bit of a barnacle on the dash from an aesthetic perspective, but trust me, when we go for a drive, I'll just explain to you how much better it is from a functionality perspective. I've driven this car from the UK to Wolfsburg, apart from sort of a few hundred miles where someone else drove it here, and yeah, this screen has made all the difference. Steering wheel, that's another difference as well. So we have, I guess, what is probably the first time we've seen this before, because some early Mark 8s had this button steering wheel, but they weren't GTIs. So this is a new thing to have it with a GTI logo on it. These work really nicely. They feel expensive to use. They look expensive, much more expensive than the piano black in the older car. And the heated steering wheel button is over here now, so really hard to operate that in error. When it comes to the back seats, there's no difference between the old car and the new car. It's exactly the same. Same goes for the boot as well. Nothing's changed in there. So let's quickly talk about the options on this car. The two cars are actually spec'd in a really similar way, which is more, I think, coincidence than anything. DCC now is just £720, and this car's got it. We've also got the 19-inch wheels, which are the Queenstown 1,270, and we've got the panoramic glass sunroof as well, 1,220. So manual blind on this hatch. I think it's fully electric on the Estate. Best to talk about the colour. So this is Oryx White Premium Mother of Pearl, £1,220. I think we need to have a look at the bonnet of the two cars to see why it might be worth paying that. Okay, so you pay a premium for King's Red. It's a beautiful colour. It's really grown on me, actually. I didn't like it on the market when it came out. That's why I went for silver. But it's not a premium colour. So with this normal metallic colour under the bonnet, it's not really, it's got no paint. It's missing it from the wings and the bonnet. Pay an extra bit though, 1,220, so about 500 quid more. And this is what you get. You get a car that's painted just like a Volkswagen used to be. I would pay £500 more to have my King's Red car painted properly under the bonnet. I don't really want Oryx White, but I just want a car painted under the bonnet. Anyway, there we go. Let's not forget, when the Mk8 GTI came out, it had an engine cover just like that. A bit of a boring one, but it had an engine cover. Then somebody who obviously drove it even harder than me managed to set fire to one. So they had a recall where they took the engine cover off, and they obviously haven't replaced them as yet. Now we have an engine cover that hopefully doesn't catch fire. Okay, before we go for a drive and see if the 265 horsepower base GTI can give me the thrill that I nearly forgot to nerd out with you guys and answer the question I know you'll ask me, and I'll be really annoyed if I don't answer it. Has the new GTI with 20 horsepower more got a different engine code to the Mk8? Well, the answer is no. They're both Delta, November, Papa, so unfortunately, we don't have a Clubsport engine shoved in the 8.5 and detuned. It's just the old engine with the wick turned up a bit. Right now, let's go and see if that wick turning up will give me the thrills that I need from a GTI, which that one didn't give me. Okay, let's start then by talking about the touchscreen. So I've driven this car now for about 400 miles over 2 days, 4 different countries. So I think I can be confident to tell you what I'm going to tell you about the system's performance. It's been pretty much perfect. I've tested it by using different apps. I've used Amazon Music, which doesn't work on a lot of CarPlay integrations. I've used it with BBC Sounds again, which generally does not work properly on a lot of cars, including mine, like S4. So let's, I mean, we're in Germany. I don't know whether it's going to let me play Radio 1, but it is. I've also used it for numerous navigation systems, which I need now, actually, because I am somewhere I don't know, so we can go straight on for a bit. So yeah, it's worked really well. There's been no glitches, and actually with the Mk8s, it was more than just the infotainment system that played up. You had parking sensor faults, which I had in my brand new Clubsport when I drove it off the dealer forecourt. We've had nothing. The only thing I do need to tell you about is that by default, I think these cars will come with traffic zone recognition connected to the cruise control. As with the Mk8, it's not good. As with every brand, it just cannot work properly because it's dealing with signs that are not in the control of the car manufacturer. Within a few minutes of driving this car out of Milton Keynes, we were on the M1 in a 50-mile-an-hour roadwork, and it decided to accelerate me up to 70 miles an hour, which is not cool. So just go into the system, go into... I get confused now because I've been messing around with so many things. It's going to be assistance systems. Go into adaptive cruise control, and then turn off speed limit response. While you're at it, you might want to just turn off the speed limiter warning, because it's quite annoying, but it does come back on every time you... Sorry, I've got to go back to the guide. It's telling me to turn left, which is not good because I'm not in the right lane. Yeah, turn the speed limiter off, but you'll have to turn that on every time. And likewise, you know, lane assist and stuff, you'll have to do that as well. But generally, it's not been too intrusive. When it has intervened, it's been all right. So yeah, let's go left here. So yeah, it's fast as well. I know a lot of you guys don't like the aesthetics of it, but really it's so much easier when you're tired and driving and looking at the detail on here. The old screen is like me looking at a book without my reading glasses on, and this is like putting my reading glasses on. It's so well defined and just so easy to use. And it does get very warm. If you put your hand there now, the sun's not been on it, and it is, you know, it's a bit like a heated seat. It does have a lot of heat, so it does need to be sticking out a bit for it to work well, and it does work well. Okay, we're on a deserted road in the sort of backwoods of Wolfsburg. Let's see how quickly we can get to 62 miles an hour. The road's not exactly straight, but let's go anyway. Let's Touareg go. So, bit of slip. It's pretty good. I don't know if I've changed how I perceive speed since I drove a 245 horsepower Mk8 in 2020, or it is that much quicker that it's suddenly dropped into being good enough for me from being just a little bit too slow. The chassis, I always remember with the Mk8 245, it was so good that it could have done with more power, and we got that with the Clubsport. Do I need the Clubsport now? I don't think I do. What I do need is DCC, so we're in sport mode. As you can hear, on this pretty bad German road, it's quite crashy. Nice blip then. Make it a little bit of slip then. It is testing the traction even in these dry conditions, so. And on the Autobahn today, it was good. It didn't feel slow. Yeah. You know, even fast cars on roads like this can feel slow on the Autobahn. It didn't, so I definitely think it's punchier, and it's punchier to the point where, you know, it's enough for me. Might not be enough for you, but I think basically it's enough for the road. And the brakes, yeah, they're not like big, but they're lighter and they're cheaper to replace, and they work. So let's do one stop. There's somebody not that close to me, but talk about the gearbox anyway. It's just usual 7-speed DSG. You cannot fault it. As you heard, there was a nice blip then as well, changing down in sport mode. Nice pops as well. Okay, so let's brake now pretty hard. Oh, wow. Yeah, okay, so these are the entry-level brakes, but I think for most people on the road, they're great because you don't drive like that very often. If you need to do an emergency stop, you know, you've got an amazing amount of stopping power. It probably won't do it again and again, or like being on a fast track like Bedford Autodrome. But yeah, for the road, I think it's enough. Can you hear the poppen und bangen? Yeah? Okay, let's talk chassis then. So we've got dynamic chassis control, and before we test it on the road, let me just show you where I tested it back at Autostadt on this cool road that's got all these different surfaces on it. Now, Rob from Volkswagen Press Office has encouraged me to go ahead with my crazy idea of testing the suspension of the 8.5 GTI with DCC on this crazy sort of suspension test facility that links the Autoturma to the Ritz-Carlton Hotel here at Wolfsburg. So we're going to do it in comfort mode first, and we're going to do it at a set. Let's try a relatively testing 18 miles an hour, which I think is 30 kilometers an hour, which is probably breaking the speed limit, but I'm really sorry, guys. Okay, so yeah, we have all sorts of different surfaces on the ground here. It's crazy. There's cobbles, there's like block paving, there's concrete, there's like really rough gravel, potholes, and a smooth surface, and then a British B road. And there we go. Right, let's go back and do that again in sport mode. I've got to stop saying sport. Okay, sport mode it is then, so 18 miles an hour-ish. There's nobody around. And yes, it's definitely more gadgety now. There's bits of things vibrating here, like the key. This is a rough bit. Oh, that's uncomfortable in sport mode. Then go for the B road pothole. Yeah, I think we can conclude that it's more comfortable in comfort mode. And then individual, you've got the multi-adjustable DCC. If you go into the modes, there we go. And it's got all those different settings, so it's really cool. So you can have it even more comfortable than comfort if you want. It's like 3 clicks to the left. We are on a bit of a rubbish road now, which is quite handy. So we're in comfort mode, and it's definitely not a wafter. In a nutshell, it's as comfortable as you will need a GTI to be, even on broken UK roads. Okay, so we're in sport mode. Let's see if we can stick it all together and I can get the thrills that I want from just the base model GTI. The roads around here aren't actually all that brilliant, to be perfectly honest, but here's a corner, so in we go. Get it loaded up. Oh yes, yes, yes! That felt brilliant. I have another one here with a bit of Armco. I think this base model GTI is all the GTI I need, at least for the road, and there's a very good reason, even more so than before, to choose the base model over the Clubsport. And that reason is a luxury car tax. In the UK, if your new car is over £40,000, you have to pay the UK government about £3 extra in road tax over 5 years from when the car is new. With the old Clubsport, that wasn't an issue. You could put a few options on it, keep it under 40k. With the new one, even if you have the base model with the nasty Richmond wheels, you're going to pay the luxury car tax. And that just doesn't seem right. This car is under 40k. You can put a couple of grand's worth of options on it. I'd go for DCC and a metallic colour. If you want to change the wheels, do that later. Doesn't affect luxury car tax. If you want to upgrade the brakes to Clubsport spec, again, do that later. And then you would have a very, very nice car as a road car. If you're going to go on track, then maybe the Clubsport is still the one to go for, but who really does that apart from idiots like me? So yes, with the 8.5, for me, the base model is the best model. As ever, guys, thanks for watching this Volkswagen video from the amazing Wolfsburg with the Autotherme, the car towers behind me. Keep subscribing, keep commenting, and I'll see you for the next video very soon.